It's time for the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Here's your host, Michael Ruffin.
You're soft, you're sloppy. They calling me Poppy.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ruffin Wrestling Show. Been a long time since I did a little episode here, and I apologize about that. I've actually been in the process of moving. I moved from Louisiana back to my hometown in Georgia, back living out in the country, and I like it. It's nice, it's peaceful, it's quiet. I can see stars at night. I have a pool. You know, it's nice. It's a nice change of pace. I've been in the process of moving, so I was doing all my packing and all my moving, and I just haven't had a chance to sit down and do a show. So now that I'm here and I'm kind of starting to settle in, I think I'm going to have a little bit more time to do some stuff. So we're going to do a few shows this week. So if you are not subscribed on iTunes or YouTube or however you listen to the show, that's where you're going to want to be, because you'll find the show on iTunes. If you subscribe, the show will find you. You don't have to go looking for it. It'll automatically download to whatever device it is that you listen to your podcasts on. Matter of fact, I listen to mine on my iPhone. And the ones I listen to, whenever they have new episodes, when I wake up, they're already downloaded, they're already on my phone, and I don't have to go looking for them. It alerts me and tells me I have new episodes to listen to, and I go, yay! And you can go, yay, too, if you subscribe to the Ruffin Wrestling Show on iTunes. If you're a Google Android user, no worries. You can also find the show on the Google Play Store as well. And if you are strictly a YouTuber, which I didn't think that audio only was going to be a thing that YouTube was kind of all about, but apparently I'm wrong. And I've had a few people ask me to put the show up on YouTube. There's a few episodes up already, and you'll find this one there as well. You can subscribe to Ruffin Wrestling Show on YouTube as well, and you can find, like I said, you can find the ways to listen to the show pretty much across any avenue that you can think of. But the best way is to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and the show will find you. You don't have to go looking for it. But we're going to talk about quite a few things here. I've watched all the Raws and all the SmackDowns of the past couple of weeks. I did finally get to watch NXT The End. We're going to definitely talk about that. That will probably actually be its own show. But I think we're going to do a couple of shows this week. We're going to do a kind of state of wrestling type deal, and then we're going to do an NXT TakeOver The End, and we're going to do a new show that I'm going to start doing every week, or maybe every 2 weeks. I'll decide on this one. We're going to start doing the Ruffin Rumor Roundup, and it's going to be strictly the rumors that are out there, and kind of weighing the pros and cons, and kind of talking about whether or not they're true or not. So we're going to do a little bit of that. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. I think you guys will enjoy that. I'm going to enjoy recording that one. So I think you guys will enjoy listening to that one. But let's go ahead and talk about what's just kind of been happening here in WWE. It's been an interesting couple of weeks since Extreme Rules. Mostly, number one, that the man, Seth Rollins, is back. I don't care that Roman Reigns calls himself the man. There's only one man, and it is Seth Rollins. And he is back, baby. He is back. And I couldn't be happier. I love Seth Rollins. I'm a huge Seth Rollins fan. So I'm really glad that Seth is back and that he is back and immediately put into a program with Roman. Just immediately. Now, of course, that's coming up at Money in the Bank. And we're going to do that show as well this week. We're going to do a Money in the Bank preview. So there's quite a few shows coming this way towards you this week. So definitely want to hit that subscribe button. But I promise that's the last time I'll plug it. All right, that's the last time I will plug a subscription. So we've got Seth Rollins is back. So that's kind of making things interesting. It's pushed AJ out of the picture with him. But then we had the return of John Cena. Now, I had it coming back with John Cena coming back and possibly taking back the United States Championship from Rusev and kind of bringing back the John Cena Open Challenge. That was kind of what I wanted it to be, but beggars can't be choosers. We didn't get that. Cena came back pretty much typical Cena form, and he immediately gets in a program with AJ Styles, which has kind of been a dream match that a lot of people have been looking forward to for the past 10 or 15 years, because if you think about it, really going back into the early 2000s when AJ went to TNA and kind of became their their face of the company. John Cena was more really the face of WWE. So here you are, for the past 10 or 15 years, the faces of two of the most popular guys who ever stepped foot in a wrestling ring are now going to face each other. So we get this, it's almost, a lot of people compared it to Rock and Hogan from their WrestleMania. And I kind of agree with that. I think a lot of people popped real good for this one. I think people are super excited about this one. I would like to see AJ get that win, but who knows? It's Cena. And, Vince and Cena, he can kind of just decide what he wants to do when he wants to do it. He kind of just does what he wants with Cena, and usually it's the complete opposite of what we want. So we'll have to see what happens there. What I don't like, and I've talked about this probably ad nauseum, I cannot stand the Club. I hate that name. It's lazy. It's so simple and just lazy writing, because it's abundantly clear what happened. WWE signed AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, or Doc Gallows, and Carl Anderson from New Japan Pro Wrestling. Yeah, they also signed Shinsuke Nakamura, but he went to NXT. So you've got these three guys up on the main roster right now. Every smart wrestling fan knows, or every wrestling fan that watches anything outside of WWE has probably heard the name the Bullet Club. And when WWE pretty much bought the contracts of these three guys, they attempted to buy the rights to the Bullet Club, but they weren't successful. And everybody's like, oh, they'll get it. They'll come out with... No, they're not. Because if you've been watching any ROH, any Ring of Honor happening at all, you've seen that Adam Cole just joined the Bullet Club. So you've got Adam Cole in the Bullet Club, baby. And then you've got the Young Bucks are still hanging out in the Bullet Club. I think a lot of people thought that the Bullet Club was kind of going to dissolve and became what Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks call the Elite. But the Elite are a separate thing. They're not part of they're not part of the Bullet Club. They are a separate thing. It was kind of, imagine if the New Day was in a faction with, say, Titus O'Neil and Mark Henry, and they called themselves the New Nation of Domination. But yet the New Day would still exist inside of that faction. So that's what you have with the Elite. The Elite is just a sub-faction of the Bullet Club. New Japan still has the rights to the Bullet Club. You will still see the Bullet Club on New Japan and in Ring of Honor. That's not going to go away. So instead of coming up with something unique and something new and actually sitting down and giving a shit, WWE essentially said, well, let's just call them the Club. And, of course, Vince and Kevin Dunn and Michael Hayes and all the guys backstage went, all right, that'll work. Let's do it. So I'm pretty sure Vince is still trying to actively buy the Bullet Club from New Japan. He's probably just going to have to open up that checkbook a little bit further until they finally agree to give him what he wants, which who knows if that'll ever happen or not. I just kind of wish they would come up with a better name. I actually have to admit, I don't hate the Bloodline, which is, of course, Roman Reigns and the Usos. Now, if that's going to ever be a thing anymore, I don't know. But that was a thing because of the match with the Club. So, and I didn't hate Bloodline. I actually liked that a little bit. That was at least it meant something. The Club just reeks of, well, we didn't get what we wanted, so we've got to make up something that's like just like it, but not the same, so that fans will know what we're talking about. Which I thought was really funny a couple weeks ago when Cena flat out called them the Bullet Club. They came out and he was like, oh no, look, here comes the Bullet Club. And I was like, oh, well, okay. I guess we're just gonna keep calling them that? I don't know. So, but that's my rant. I just don't like the name The Club. I love AJ, I love Anderson and Gallows, and I love Finn Balor. But I just don't like the Club. And the reason I think it's not a permanent thing is because there hasn't been a t-shirt. That's how you know in WWE when something's a little bit more concrete, is when you get a t-shirt. Now, of course, I say this, and we all remember the, 2 weeks, I think, the t-shirt of Y2AJ was available. So who knows? But they have not made a t-shirt for the Club exclusively. So maybe that will mean that we won't be stuck with that name for a while. Maybe there's a timestamp on the Bullet Club. Maybe they have it until a certain time, and then WWE will get it. Who knows? But let's move on. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's happening in the women's division. Unfortunately, right now, Emma had back surgery, and she pretty much almost had a career-ending injury. But hopefully, she's going to have a speedy recovery. She'll be back. She's expected to have full recovery, and is expected to come back. But let's talk about what's been happening here in the women's division and how they came out with this new belt, the women's World Championship. It's no longer the Divas belt. But yet, the storylines on TV are still very Diva title-esque. We've got silly finishes, we've got kind of silly promos, we've got weird matchups. Just, it doesn't feel like there's any structure and any foundation to the women's division. And it's kind of causing it to kind of deflate. Like, I think a lot of people were really high on it. A lot of people really, really enjoyed the fact that they got the new belt. I know I loved it. And I thought, this is going to be great. Maybe we're going to see some better stuff. And so far, it's just kind of been spinning its wheels. Just kind of spinning its tires since WrestleMania. We had to sit through the Natalya and Charlotte feud for almost 2 months. Becky Lynch essentially has been doing nothing up until last week. Sasha Banks hasn't been on TV since April. I know she had a concussion, but she's been working house shows for over a month, and they have not put her back on TV. Now, the rumor is that she is going to be coming back into the title picture for SummerSlam. Now, if that's actually going to happen or not, who knows? I guess we'll have to see. But what I haven't enjoyed is the fact that when Emma got hurt, they figured, oh no, we have to call up another woman. So they called up Dana Brooke, who wasn't ready to be an NXT wrestler, let alone a main roster wrestler. She's really rusty. She's not that great. She's got a great physique, but that's because she's a fitness model. She's a competitive bodybuilder. So she's got a fantastic body, fantastic build, but she has no skill in the ring. She's very rusty and she's very sloppy. And it's making Charlotte kind of look bad. And now they've kind of started doing this thing with Charlotte when 2 or 3 weeks ago when she had one of the best promos I've ever seen. At least Charlotte do, when she essentially exiled her father and told him, I don't need you anymore, and you can go home and you can do like I did and watch me from the television at home, like I watched you. And I thought that was great that they kind of turned on him, because here's the thing with Flair, no matter that Flair is the dirtiest player in the game, that doesn't matter. So when Ric Flair, no matter what he does, he's the dirtiest player in the game, but no matter what he does heel-wise, nothing will get the audience completely too hot on him. So when Charlotte essentially kicks her father out and bans him from her life, the audience sympathized with Rick. So they kind of turns Rick back a little bit more face and makes Charlotte even more red hot as a heel. So I really liked that. I enjoyed that. But what I'm wanting is a solid program for Charlotte to be in, where that title is kind of always being defended. I felt like with Natalya, that was a great feud, but then they did the stupid Chicago screwjob thing, why is it that WWE feels that every time Bret Hart's in the arena, they have to remind him of what happened in Montreal? Why is that? Does Vince get does Vince get his rocks off on that? Does he think that's funny? I don't get that. So I don't understand why, like I said, every time Bret Hart's in the arena, they have to remind him, oh, hey, Bret, you remember Montreal? Come on, no, he doesn't need that. So I thought that was kind of silly, and it made that whole feud look kind of dumb and kind of pointless. So, we're stuck with this kind of wherever. Paige is kind of nowhere to be found. I follow Nikki Bella on Instagram, and from what it looks like, she's getting ready. Girl's getting ready. She's coming back. And when she comes back, I'm sure they're going to put the title right back on her, because they pretty much only took it away from her because she had to go have surgery on her neck before, she took a bad bump and killed herself. So I'm sure as soon as Nikki's back, they're going to put the title right back on her. Now, maybe that's why they're kind of kind of keeping it stale with Charlotte. Maybe that's got something to do with it. But, you know, I don't mind Charlotte being champion. I like Charlotte. But what I want is that title to mean something. Right now it's starting to feel like it doesn't mean anything because you got Charlotte running from people by escaping through the crowd. Like, she's pulling essentially what they did with Seth Rollins when Seth was champion back after WrestleMania 31, where he defended his title only when he absolutely had to. Otherwise, he'd weasel his way out of it. He'd slip out. He'd run. He wouldn't show up to the arena. He would do something to avoid, you know, having to defend his title. So I have a feeling that's kind of what they're doing with Charlotte here, except it's just not as effective and it's not working as well as it did with when it did with Seth Rollins. So I'm hoping that soon we will get a little bit more effectiveness in the women's title hunt. I guess it just, like I said, it just feels stale. It doesn't feel like it matters. And with the new belt and the talent that they've got, good God, the talent that they have, they could do some amazing things. So, I mean, I know everybody's wanting Bayley to come up, but from what I can tell, everything I've read is that Bayley has not come up yet because there's no babyface woman in NXT to kind of take up that banner that she's put very high in the air there. I mean, Bayley is the most beloved person in NXT. It's, you know, people cry when Bayley loses. When Bayley gets hurt, people cry. People go and visit her in the hospital if they can. It's, you know, people love her. So they're really trying to work that timing out where they can get somebody up there to be the kind of the baby face. And I don't know if they'll do that with Asuka, maybe Carmella. You know, I don't know. I'm kind of missing Carmella not being up here with Enzo and Cass. So we'll have to see kind of what happens there. But that's why Bayley's not up yet. So hopefully it'll happen soon. They are, if you've been watching NXT on television recently, they have been doing a lot more with the women. You've been seeing some of the Peyton Royce and Liv Morgan and Asuka, this Aaliyah girl that I really don't like, Nia Jax, Ava Marie. So they've got the women, and they're doing more with that. They're trying to get something to work. They're trying to find that chemical, they're trying to find that chemistry that flows and works, so they can do something with that, and then possibly move Bayley up, because by God, she's deserved it, and she has earned it. She has worked her ass off for it, and she deserves to be up here, and I can't wait until Bayley's up on Raw and SmackDown. So let's talk about. Actually, you know, the only thing we have left to talk about is, well, first off, if you have not seen, and I know a lot of wrestling fans have talked about this, if you have not seen the Will Ospreay and Ricochet match from the Best of the Super Juniors in New Japan, you need to go and find that. You can probably find it on YouTube. You definitely can find it on Daily Motion. Will Ospreay versus Ricochet from the Super Juniors this year was an amazing match that I'm pretty sure if Jim Cornette ever watches it, a Horcrux of his soul will die. Because it is everything that Jim Cornette hates about wrestling. It is a flippy-floppy, acrobatic, you know, high-risk spot match. It's got some true wrestling in there with a lot of rest holds, a lot of headlocks, leg locks, things like that. But for the most part, it is someone took off the restraints for Ricochet and Will Ospreay and let them just do whatever they could do, and they made the most entertaining match I have seen in a long time. Of course, now I think it was Vader. I think said he thought it was just It was like a gymnastics routine. It was a rehearsed gymnastics routine, and it wasn't a wrestle match because nobody was selling and they were killing the business. And that, shut up. And when Vader was Vader, trust me, I was there when Vader was Vader. I saw Vader beat Sting in a cage match once, you know, in the 80s or early 90s maybe. So I know all about Vader. This man used to do a moonsault. This is a big old dude, 300-something, almost 400 pounds. And he would do a moonsault onto people. So Vader really has no room to talk about flippy-floppy. Because if a 400-pound man like Vader can do a moonsault, Ricochet and Will Ospreay should be able to do like 450s, you know, and even crazier stuff. There was some crazy spots in that match, and it was great because honestly, I didn't know who was going to win, and I was pulling for both of them. I had no stake in that game, and yet I had all the stake in that game. You know, I was just, as I was watching it, I found myself, like, I pull for Ricochet, then I pull for Will Ospreay, then I go back to Ricochet, then back to Will Ospreay. I won't spoil who wins that match for you, but it's a fantastic match. It's a good solid 15 minutes or so, 15 to 18 minutes. So it's a good solid long match. And it's fantastic. It's a fantastic match. You need to go check that out. But I think the biggest thing that we're going to talk about here, and maybe the last thing we're going to talk about here on this, at least on this episode, and that is the upcoming brand, quote-unquote, expansion. Of course, we've all been calling it the brand split because we went through the brand split the last time, and it worked for a while, and then it kind of became, it didn't really work out anymore, and then they merged them back together, and now we're going to break them apart again. But this time, they're being very careful. They're not calling it a brand split. They're calling it a brand expansion. And I guess what they're trying to say is we're not just going to take Raw and SmackDown and then just divide up the rosters. They're going to do it, whereas some guys will stay on Raw, and some guys that maybe don't get a lot of shots and a lot of opportunities. Got new guys like Apollo Crews, Tyler Breeze, even guys like AJ Styles might move over to SmackDown and become the top stars of SmackDown. And I think that's what they're trying to go for. And if that's what they're trying to go for, then I'm completely behind that. Because when I watch Raw, 3 hours of Raw, thankfully I usually don't watch it live. So I can fast forward through the commercials. So for me, it's only 2 hours. Or if better yet, I'll watch the 90-minute version on Hulu. But with that one, you do miss some stuff. You do get some stuff that's cut, and I have to go find other things if I plan to talk about the show. So for me, when I watch 3 hours of Raw, I see the same people over and over and over and over again. I see the Usos. I see Roman. I see Seth. I see AJ. I see the Club. I see Charlotte. I see Natalya. I see the same people week in and week out. It's like they just go back in the back and trade out who's going to fight who. Oh, well, last week, Roman and Seth Rollins fought each other. So, let's do Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose. You know, great match. Great match. Absolutely great match. But to see it, twice in a month, or to see it on Raw and then see them do it again on SmackDown, just boggles my mind. It's like, really? You claim that your roster right now is the biggest it's ever been, and it's the healthiest it's ever been. I think that's a bad word with all the injuries you have out there, but it's the best it's ever been. It's the strongest roster we've ever had. And yet, I see the same people over and over and over and over again. And for me, that's extremely frustrating. When you've got guys like I said, like Apollo Crews, Tyler Breeze, you've got amazing talent in your locker room, and they're not getting the shots they deserve because they've got to back out and give the same guys every week the same shots. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, the guys that get the big shots are the guys that are the guys making the money, are the guys that are drawing people in, the guys that are selling tickets. And that's the whole thing. If you don't know about the whole thing with Ryback, you can look that up. I'm not going to really talk about that. But essentially, Ryback said he wanted equal pay in the locker room, and Vince told him to go home because his contract's almost up, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to get renewed. He hasn't been released yet, but I'm pretty sure it's coming soon. So, but his whole thing was that these guys that work day in, day out, work every house show, work every TV, they don't take days off. They don't get paid the same as Roman and Seth and Dean and John Cena and AJ. Well, that's because those guys are draws. They draw people in. People don't go to a live event for Dolph Ziggler. People don't go to a live event for Sheamus. People don't go to a live event for, I don't know, Alberto Del Rio. They go for Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose, Roman Reigns, AJ Styles. I don't know if I said Cena. That's who they go for. So what they want to do with the brand expansion is take these guys that aren't getting the main event spotlight, and they're moving them over to SmackDown, and they're letting them have that. And I honestly think that with this brand expansion, if done right, SmackDown could actually end up being a better show. In my opinion, you remember back in the day when Paul Heyman was writing SmackDown, and Raw became the show that you could kind of miss. You could hear about it from your buddy the next day, but if you watched it, it was fun. It was fine. But SmackDown, no. SmackDown was the show. You could not miss SmackDown. He took SmackDown from being the B show and made it the must-watch show of the week. And I think that's what they want to try and do with SmackDown again. They want to maybe bring up some more guys from NXT, or take some guys from the mid-card of Raw and put them over on SmackDown, where they'll be main eventers. Dolph Ziggler will main event on SmackDown. Sami Zayn will main event on SmackDown. Apollo Crews, he'll get up there. You get these guys that will work their way up SmackDown, and then on Raw, you've got the guys who can draw and carry a show. But people will go to SmackDown for the other people. They will go to that for them. You don't have to worry about putting all of your draw on one show. You can take that gamble and put lesser known names, or guys that a lot of people like but don't get the shots that they need and that they've worked for and that they deserve. They don't get that over on Raw. They'll get that on SmackDown. And that's why, honestly, I am in favor of the brand expansion. Now, where you go with, a lot of people have been asking about the titles. And my opinion on that is this. If you're going to have two main shows that are now no longer connected with the same rosters, then you need to have a second championship. You will keep essentially what is now known as the WWE World Heavyweight Championship on Raw, and then possibly you bring back the gold belt, which was the old World Championship belt. You bring that back and put it on SmackDown. So you got that on SmackDown. I say that you keep the U.S. title on Raw. You take the Intercontinental Championship over to SmackDown. The tag teams and the women's, I think you keep the tag team on Raw. You put the women on SmackDown. Now, if you can make it to where the tag teams and the women work both shows, I think that's the best option. That way, people that go to SmackDown will get to see the tag teams. They'll get to see the women. People that go to Raw will get to see the tag teams. They'll get to see the women. They will get to see that. So, I am not against them working both shows if their travel plans allow. Like right now, what WWE does is, like tonight, they're back in almost my hometown. Last night, they were in Baton Rouge. Tonight, they are in, Raw is in New Orleans. So, tonight, they'll do Raw, and then SmackDown, I'm not sure where it is, but it's probably somewhere like Biloxi. It's somewhere really close within a couple of hours that they can travel to and do what they do. Now, what I think what they want to do at SmackDown is they want to have the Raw will have a travel schedule, and SmackDown will have a travel schedule. And I don't know if those schedules will take them off in separate directions and they never see each other again until we get to the pay-per-view, or I don't even know how that's going to work. There's a rumor about that out there, and we're going to talk about that in the rumor roundup this week. We're not going to talk about it on this show. So keep up with the shows. You'll see the rumor roundup coming up later this week. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Who knows if they'll take Raw and they'll take SmackDown and even send them to separate areas of the country. Like at one time, Raw might be in California, SmackDown might be in Boston. It could be a completely opposite coast. Who knows? We'll have to see, I guess, what they're going to do there. July 19th, the first live SmackDown. It is going to be on Tuesdays, which I think is cool because they usually tape SmackDown on Tuesday. So maybe that should tell you something right there, that maybe they will they'll keep them kind of close together on the road. Who knows? Who knows, man? A lot of it's still out there and really undefined yet. We don't know. So one last thing I do want to talk about, and it's not really a rumor. It did get announced. Brock Lesnar going to go back to UFC for UFC 200. And I've forgotten who he's fighting because I really don't watch any UFC that much. I know people wanted it to be Frank Mir, but I know it's not Frank Mir. So from what I understand, it's actually an opponent that he might actually have some trouble with. It's not going to be an easy get in there and knock the guy out kind of thing for him. He won't be able to get in there and just suplex City all over the place. Am I going to watch it? Sure, probably. UFC 200, they're trying to build it to be a pretty good show. It was supposed to be where CM Punk made his UFC debut, but who knows if that will ever happen. Who knows if CM Punk will ever see the inside of an octagon at a UFC event. Who knows? He keeps getting hurt, so I have no idea. But when it comes to Brock, a lot of people have been saying that, I guess Brock's done with WWE. Brock's not going to come back to wrestling. He's going to go back to UFC. And, of course, all the UFC fans are saying, but I thought you retired. I thought you went back to WWE. So, to clear it up, I think the deal that happened is Brock has a fantastic contract. I don't know who does his contract negotiations. I would assume it's probably Paul, knowing the line of business that Paul does outside of WWE. He is a hustler. He is a businessman. He is hustle from dawn to dusk, man. And he is a businessman. So for me, if Paul is his negotiator, then he's got the best negotiator you could ever have in Paul Heyman. So from what I understand, it is a one-time deal where Brock is going to go do UFC, but he will be back in time for SummerSlam. Matter of fact, for the first time ever, WWE is going to promote UFC 200, and UFC is going to promote SummerSlam. So for the first time ever, I guess Dana White and Vince worked out a deal where they'll talk about each other's business on their respective programs. Now, what I think about this is I have an opinion about this. And just hear me out. Brock is all about the money. He doesn't care about the glory. He doesn't care about the championships. He doesn't care about his win-loss record. He cares about how much money is in his checking account and how much money is in his savings account and how he is providing for his wife and kids. That is what Brock Lesnar is about. Now, not to say that he doesn't do this because he loves it. Maybe he does. Maybe he hates it. Who knows? But he is very much all about the money. If you don't remember, when he retired from UFC, he openly said he doesn't know where any of his UFC belts are. They're in storage somewhere, but he knows how much he made fighting. So that should tell you something right there. Brock is all about the cash. And not that that's a problem. So here's what I think could happen. This is a one-time deal for UFC 200. But that doesn't mean that it will stay a one-time deal at UFC 200. Brock is a part-timer in WWE. He usually comes in around Royal Rumble, works through Mania, goes away, comes back for SummerSlam. Sometimes he comes back in the middle from Hell in the Cell sometimes. But most times he rides that thing out. He does Mania and SummerSlam. Well, he does Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam. And he'll work some dates here and there. Most of the time it's just promos. Most of the time it's just, on-camera stuff that's not really a match. I can't remember the last time that Brock had a match on Raw. So, Brock is, in every sense of the word, a part-timer. When you got guys like Dean Ambrose, Dolph Ziggler, AJ Styles, Sami Zayn, who are pulling, we'll say a 40-hour work week, Brock's pulling a 10 or a 15, working on the weekends, So, for me, why don't they just do this? Brock part-times between UFC and WWE. When It's WWE time. Brock comes in, trains, gets ring ready, gets in shape. They get an opponent. They work that storyline. He does his thing. He goes home. He gets his check. He goes home. He goes off to UFC, trains, gets to working, has a fight. Has maybe 2 fights, depending on the time. Goes home. Comes back, maybe takes a little time off, takes a little couple months off. Then he comes back for SummerSlam. Does a match, does a program with somebody at SummerSlam, goes away, maybe takes some time off till maybe November, December. Comes back, does a fight. Goes away, comes back, rinse, cycle, repeat. Just wash, rinse, repeat. Just keep going. Round the cycle we go. Take his time off when he wants to, but split his time between WWE and UFC and pull a full-time schedule just in 2 separate promotions. It works for everybody. UFC gets Brock. WWE gets Brock. UFC can promote WWE programming. WWE can promote that Brock's on a UFC card. Brock makes money hand over fist. He makes his WWE contract. He makes his UFC fight pay. So for me, that's a no-win. That's a no-lose situation right there. Brock pulls part-time between UFC and WWE and makes so much money he can wipe his ass with a $100 bill. But that's going to be the show for right now. With like I said, we got a lot coming up this week. I'm going to do a whole nother show about NXT TakeOver The End and get that online. We're going to do a show about the Rumor Roundup this week. We got a lot coming at you this week. We're going to talk about Raw and SmackDown a little bit later this week. Of course, today's Monday, so we'll have Raw tonight, SmackDown this Thursday. So we'll talk about Raw and SmackDown a little later in the week. But until then, you guys keep safe, and we will see you next time. Peace.